Eskom wants to increase electricity tariffs by 40%. Hello South Africa, my name is Kwena Maloto, coming to you live today from Pretoria outside the NERSA offices, where the DA is handing over a petition that was signed by over 200,000 South Africans rejecting this proposed Eskom tariff price increase. Now, South Africa is going through a cost of living crisis, and South Africans can't afford to pay for the mismanagement and poor governance of Eskom. Now, please like and share this broadcast with your friends and family, and keep up with the conversation online using the hashtag #StopElectricityPriceIncreases. Now, we'll be joined by various leaders throughout the day, but right now I'm joined by the caucus leader of the City of Tshwane and the caucus leader of the City of Johannesburg, Celia and Belinda. Celia, Belinda, we're here with a petition that's been signed by over 200,000 South Africans. How do you feel being here today?
Well, it's very important that somebody fights for ordinary South Africans who find themselves in the midst of an affordability crisis. Many households are at the point where they have to choose between grocery items, food, basic stuff, and paying their municipal bill. Now, we've already had year upon year of above inflation increases from Eskom, which municipalities have had to force onto consumers, and that has led to illegal connections, deteriorating infrastructure, and making the lives of folks that are already vulnerable even worse. So part of NERSA's mandate is to take that into account, and we as the DA are here to make sure that they do.
Now, Belinda, how do you feel being here today?
I'm very, very excited that we are finally speaking up for residents. The DA is the only party that takes residents into account and speaks for the residents. Everybody else is busy with trying to hold coalitions together. It's only the DA. In Johannesburg, I'm sure you've seen the chaos that's happening. There's a bigger salary bill than actual service delivery, and they are not even cutting off people who are illegally connecting. And it's important that we raise these concerns with not only NERSA, that when they come to ask for increases, that those things are taken into account, that municipalities like Johannesburg might get their house in order and get things right so they can pay their bills and not lump the burden onto the residents because of maladministration and corruption.
Now, Celia, 40%. What does 40% actually mean for the ordinary South African?
Well, it means the municipality has to pay that. And municipalities are already struggling with their finances. As Belinda has mentioned, the Gauteng metros all owe Eskom money. Now, yes, there isn't load shedding at the moment, but let's not forget the years and years of load shedding that affected the status of our infrastructure, that affected our economy, the ability of our consumers to earn a living, businesses to make a living. That still has an effect. Just because there isn't load shedding now doesn't mean there isn't a legacy of Eskom failures that municipalities now have to carry. So it is a massive difference on an ordinary municipal bill that is, say, 1,500 to 2,000 Rand a month. Now suddenly you slap a 40% increase onto that. That makes a massive difference. That makes the difference between eating meat or not eating meat, eating chicken or not eating chicken. It has a severe impact on ordinary South Africans, and that is what has to be taken into account by NERSA.
Now, Belinda, we recently saw Eskom announce that they would be cutting off power to Johannesburg. Can you just elaborate more on this and tell us what could have been done to avoid this?
Well, City Power is in a complete mess at the moment. And the unfortunate part is that they are not being transparent about what is actually happening within the entity. Fortunately for us, there are officials who are concerned about the state of the finances of the city and how City Power manages its finances. They should have just sat down with Eskom to discuss a repayment plan and pay their bills. Because if you expect residents to pay their bills or get cut off, the same should apply to when you owe Eskom. But at the same time, we also have the 200 Rand surcharge in Johannesburg. That is in addition to that, and that is why we are here today to say that for Joburg residents specifically, there's also this 200 Rand surcharge. Get your house in order, fix the bills. Don't employ people outside of budget without technical expertise to be able to fix the legacy of lack of maintenance for the past 30 years.
Now, Eskom's allowed to charge a make-up tariff for lost revenue. Given the mismanagement that's taken place inside the entity, the corruption, do you feel like that's a fair cost to the consumer?
Well, as the DA and our spokesperson on energy, Kevin Milam, has pointed out, there are various inefficiencies that can be addressed. Things that shouldn't be lost, that shouldn't be spent on, that is currently being spent on. You can't tax Eskom out of trouble. We need the kinds of reforms that the DA has long advocated for the energy sector that are finally now coming online. But beyond that, you need Eskom to be properly managed. Like any household, they have to cut their expenses. They can't just simply push those expenses onto the end consumers. So no, I don't think that's fair. And we also have to look at the economics of this. Beyond a certain point, if you tax people beyond a certain point, you are not going to get the tax revenues that you have on your books. It's called the Laffer curve in economics. And that we have to be cognizant of. You can tax and tax and tax, but the actual proceeds that you're going to get from those taxes are going to be less and less.
Belinda, speaking about tariffs, you mentioned that 200 Rand surcharge, I believe, that city of Johannesburg wanted to charge its residents. Can you just tell us about the fight that the DA has taken against this?
What we've done is we've launched a petition, obviously, that has already gotten about over 20,000 signatures that we've submitted to the MMC. The MMC has made, at the time, who's now the mayor, and we're still holding him accountable. We put questions in council with regards to that. And obviously, we see now that there's a new coalition, and we're also holding that new coalition accountable, because you cannot lump your failures of the city, of the municipality, onto the residents. People are already struggling to pay for that 13% increase initially on electricity, which they haven't told residents or consulted with when it was the independent IDP sessions with public participation. There's been no proper public participation specifically for this 200 Rand surcharge, and that is why we'll continue the fight. When they're busy with the CBP public participations now, we are also asking them to ensure that they bring that back to discuss in a public platform so residents can have their voices heard.
Thanks. Now, Salia, the DA has been fighting against this proposed tariff increase from the beginning. Can you just give us an update on the steps the DA has taken to fight against this tariff increase?
Well, several DA mayors, including the mayor of Cape Town, and when I was mayor of Tshwane, I did so. We wrote to NERSA, we illustrated to them, this is an example of a household who will have to absorb the increase that Eskom is asking for. We said to them that our infrastructure is deteriorating because even though we've increased and improved our credit control functions, Tshwane Yatima, we went hard on folks that didn't pay their bills. At a certain point, you get to a resident where the money outstanding is just so much, you can do whatever you want to there, you're just not going to get that proceeds because the resident's income hasn't grown in the past few years. They don't have assets to pay. And exactly because Eskom has been passing on these above inflation increases to municipalities year after year after year. We hope that NERSA takes cognizance of that. We know that there will be hearings now, and DA leaders and DA mayors will be making representations at those hearings. But it is so vitally important that the public take note that there are processes, that public pressure can be brought to bear on institutions such as NERSA. What we're doing here isn't inappropriate. This is democracy. It's proper public participation, not just a tick box exercise. They must feel the pressure that South Africans are under.
Yeah. Now, I want to touch on what you were saying, is that inside the city of Tshwane, under your leadership, massive strides were taken to ensure that residents are protected by the failings of Eskom's. Could you just elaborate on some of the things that you did when you were executive mayor?
So there were two things we undertook and two things that all metros must undertake. The first is to get as independent of Eskom as possible. Look at the infrastructure that you have, whether it be rooftop solar, whether it be power stations such as we have in the city of Tshwane that have been mothballed, where we initiated a process to get those power stations, Rooival and Pretoria West, in the hands of IPPs, because the more competition you have, the less dependent you are on Eskom, the less you are vulnerable to increases of this nature. The second thing you obviously have to do is to make sure that those folks who can pay their bills do pay their bills. But going with that to the point I emphasized earlier, we need reasonable increases. The higher the increases from year to year, the more difficult it becomes for any municipality, even well-run municipalities, to actually collect on what is used.
Belinda, what would your final message be to South Africans watching at home?
We're saying to South Africans, reject this 40% increase and pay your bills, first of all. Pay what you owe, but also reject the increases and the IDP sessions, the public participation sessions. If you see any petitions, make sure that your voice is heard. Sign those petitions so we can reject anything that is outside of the ordinary that will affect you negatively.
Thank you, Belinda. Celia, your final message to residents of South Africa watching at home?
We will keep on fighting for you, and together we will make NERSA and government feel the pressure that ordinary people are under. Let's do this.
Thank you so much, Belinda. Thank you so much, Celia. We'll be now crossing over to the lectern to hear from our DA national spokesperson, Karabo, as well as many other DA leaders. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned.
We as the Democratic Alliance have decided that we're not going to sit in air-conditioned offices and have chats over coffee or tea. We are taking the fight to the streets where the fight belongs. That is why we are here outside today to say genoeg is genoeg. Down with the sort of thing, motlakase wa tura, dijo di a tura, bophelo ba tura, ha re tlo e patalla 40% increase ya teng akere. Democrats, we have a very important mission here. We're not just here to make a noise. It is very important that every person here behind these offices gets to hear us and hears us very clearly. Because standing here, we carry the voices of thousands of South Africans who are crying, saying, Boroto ba tura, motlakase wa tura, metsi wa tura, bophelo ba tura, re keke ba ra kgona ho patala akere. Now, we have a number of political leaders here today. And then each of them will come and give us the address of why exactly we're here today. Joining me today is the provincial leader of the Democratic Alliance here in Gauteng, Ntate Solim Simanga Rarengena, Solim Simanga. Democrats were joined by the Democratic Alliance national spokesperson on energy, Ntate Kevin Mailam Rarhala, Kevin Mailam Halala. Matata a Gauteng a mangata, from Tshwane to Johannesburg. And that is why here today we're also joined by the caucus leader of the Democratic Alliance in Tshwane, that is Celia Brinkrere Hoi Hoi. Celia Brink Hoi Hoi. We're also joined by the caucus leader of the Democratic Alliance in the Johannesburg caucus, Rere Halala Belinda Echosonjuku Halala. Now, Democrats, firstly, to officially kickstart the program, I'm going to hand over to Ntate Kevin Mailam. In Parliament as the Democratic Alliance, what do we think of this mess? Kevin, over to you.
Viva DA, viva! Viva! Pambile DA, Pambile! Amandla! Democrats, for the past 17 years, South Africa has been in the dark, literally and figuratively. Load shedding has choked our economy, stunted our growth, and left our people powerless. And why? Because Eskom has failed at its one job, to keep the lights on. Now, as we come out of that darkness, Eskom wants to hit us with massive electricity price increases. Eskom has become a symbol of state capture, corruption, and mismanagement. The Medupi and Kusile power stations, which were intended to end our energy crisis, are monuments to corruption and greed. Originally, they were budgeted at about 80 billion rand each, and they came in at more than 220 billion rand each because of design flaws, delays, and outright theft. The ANC's Chancellor House profited while South Africans paid the price. And these projects still plague us, costing us more than 380 billion over budget. Last week, I was at the Volge village, an 840 million rand ghost town built for Kusile workers that stands abandoned and never occupied. It is a state-of-the-art residential complex that is incomplete and is now falling into rack and ruin. Eskom has left similar projects across the country to rot or to fall into criminal hands, and yet it dares to demand more from us. South Africans, you've already paid for this twice. You've paid for it through taxes. You've paid for it through government bailouts. And you know how much those government bailouts are? So far, it's about 500 billion rand in bailouts. And now they want a third payment in the form of a 36.15% tariff increase. And for what? For us to keep paying for their luxury spending. For a company that buys a roll of toilet paper for 26 rand, the same roll that you or I would go to Checkers or Spar and we would pay 8 rand for. Imagine how little respect Eskom has for you, the people who struggle every day to make ends meet, if this is how they manage the money that we entrust to them. This electricity price hike is nothing less than Eskom's attempt to shove the costs of its incompetence and corruption onto ordinary citizens. More than 36%. This increase will devastate households and businesses, already burdened by the high cost of living. It will destroy small businesses, force layoffs, and push even more families into poverty. This is not just unfair, it's an outrage. Ask yourself this: why should South Africans pay for Eskom's failures? Why should we bear the burden for a service that's barely a service at all? The answer is simple: we shouldn't. It's time to fight back. Now, public hearings into Eskom's application for a 36.15% tariff increase, on top of the 4% they have already received, start next week. But millions of voices are being silenced by NERSA. In the Northern Cape, NERSA is not holding public hearings. So the people of the Northern Cape are being excluded from this process. This is unacceptable. We demand that NERSA open these hearings to everyone. Every South African must have the opportunity to say, enough is enough. Genoeg is genoeg. The solution isn't to make South Africans pay more for the same broken system. The solution is for Eskom to fix itself. We demand accountability, we demand transparency, and we demand an end to the cycle of corruption. Eskom must clean up its act, or they must step aside. We must move to a future where clean, affordable, and sustainable energy is the norm, not a privilege. This means breaking free from coal, from corruption, and from the monopolistic grip Eskom holds over this country. South Africa's energy future belongs to the people, not to an institution that's both player and referee and clings to monopoly practices. Now, today we hand over a petition that's behind me here, signed by more than 200,000 South Africans, demanding that NERSA reject this outrageous tariff increase. Ordinary people across the length and breadth of South Africa have put pen to paper to demand fairness. In the last 17 years, electricity prices have increased more than 650%, far outstripping the 129% increase in inflation over the same period. In fact, if there's a bigger driver of inflation in South Africa than electricity pricing, I don't know what it is. And still, they want more. We call on the Minister of Energy and Electricity to put a stop to this madness and level the playing field for new players. We demand that he implement a comprehensive review of the electricity pricing policy and the free basic electricity policy. South Africans deserve competition, lower costs, and reliable power. Democrats, this is a call to action. Stand up, speak out, attend the public hearings. Let NERSA know that we won't stand for this. Let Eskom know that if it doesn't get its house in order, we will tear down the walls of this corrupt structure ourselves. Together, we can ensure a future where energy is accessible, affordable, and free from corruption. Stand with us. Say no to Eskom's increase and demand the energy future South Africa deserves. Phambili, DA, phambili!
Phambili, DA, phambili! Halala, Kevin, Mile, Hem, Kalala! Batong Rutlile, we are not here to play today. You know, I'm certainly very proud to be standing outside of this NERSA as a member of the Democratic Alliance that has a Mid-Vaal municipality, that is the only municipality in this province that does not owe Eskom money. But that is not true for the city of Johannesburg. But as the Democratic Alliance, we're not just folding our arms about that. We have a caucus leader in the city of Johannesburg. Her name is Belinda Kaiser Echiozonjuku. Rekena Belinda Kena.
Should we get to...
Viva DA, viva! Viva! Phambili DA, phambili! Good morning, Democrats. Today I am here to fight for the residents of Johannesburg. We are saying enough is enough. There cannot be a 40% increase while the city of Johannesburg entity, City Power, is adding employee-related costs up to an excess of 118 million rand. Johannesburg residents not only lumped with a tariff increase of 200 rand, but now they will also be lumped and affected by this 40% increase if we allow it to go through. Just last week, Democrats, Eskom threatened to cut off the electricity supply in Johannesburg because of the 4.9 billion rand that is owed by City Power to Eskom. If you don't pay your bills, what happens? They cut your electricity and they wait for you to make arrangements. But first, you will sit in the dark while they make arrangements. Currently, City Power is sitting with an overdraft facility of 16 billion rand, and you are paying and footing the bill for that. Years and years of failure to maintain the electricity infrastructure has now come to affect all of us. While the power outages are more and more, you are being asked to pay more for electricity, but you are sitting in the dark.
Imagine.
While City Power is employing people outside of the budget, you are paying for it. While businesses are closing, they want you to pay more. Where is the money coming from if you are unemployed? While residents struggle to make ends meet, make their way to work, pay for a transport, you have to pay more for electricity if we allow this to go through. While the city of Johannesburg is too scared to collect the millions from the government-owned buildings that owe electricity to City Power, Lesufi's buildings are owing the city a lot of money for electricity. And they are scared to collect it from them. But you have to pay more for your electricity. Last week, We also had a water interruption that was due to a power failure at the Pulp Meat Reservoir. But I want to tell you, Democrats, we are not going to allow more outages, more power failures, while you have to pay more. We reject this increase. We are saying no more. Enough is enough. It's simply not fair. We will not pay for the failures of Eskom. We will not pay for the failures of City Power. We are saying reject this increase, sign petitions, make your voice heard, every street corner, every street where you are, everywhere you can object, where there's public hearings, make your voice heard so this Eskom can be reviewed. Thank you very much.
Kulento siyenzayo asinalo uvalo. We are very clear, we are resolute about why is it that we are here today. But before I hand over to the next speaker, I want us to make a lavai. I want these windows behind us to shake and hear that the Democratic Alliance is here today. Selecta kamrahau kamo, kibatla pina. Uvalo dololo, so that they know that we are not shaken, we are not scared, we mean business, we reject this increase, we reject Eskom in its current form, and we certainly as South Africans have had enough on ons is gatvol genoeg, is genoeg. Kloleon. Okay, even that is fine. Asina luvaloti bina ioha are asina luvaloti aseya tatazela Two that we mean business. Once upon a time in this province, we had a proper mayor in the city of Tshwane. We were leading in the right direction, ready to rescue the residents of Tshwane and turn their lives around. Mara ra tseba hore re fihlile jwang mona. Ho bana le batho be leng hore ha ba tsotelle setjhaba. Their interest was never for the residents of Tshwane, but simply for their pockets. And Tshwane right now is in a mess. But we have a caucus leader who not only has a good understanding of what is going on in that administration, but is determined to do anything and everything it takes to make sure that the residents of Tshwane have a vanguard, the residents of Tshwane have a saving grace, and the residents of Tshwane have an ally that they can depend on. Now, Democrats, help me welcome onto the podium the caucus leader of the Democratic Alliance Tshwane, Silius Bragg.
ACDC. Democrats! South Africans are in an affordability crisis. Households are feeling the pressure. Due to increases in the price of electricity year after year after year, we now have households that have to choose between groceries and paying electricity bills.
Yep.
Groceries, foodstuffs, and paying the municipalities for electricity. Now, as things have become more expensive year after year after year, incomes haven't been increasing. The economy hasn't been growing. Businesses haven't been expanding. And that pressure is felt by households. Under our leadership, the city of Tshwane made a submission to NERSA in which we explained to them in detail this would be the effect on a vulnerable household if this 30 to 40% increase is granted to Eskom. This is the choices that ordinary people will have to make. This is how we will force them to be impoverished. And that is unfair. Now, to get out of financial trouble, municipalities have to make tough choices. Here in Tshwane, we drove very hard that the people who can afford to pay their bills must pay their bills. Tshwane Yatima was launched in all of its strength, and we strengthened the financial position of the city. But municipalities reached the point where you can knock on doors and you can demand payment. But if the group of people that simply cannot afford to pay grows so big, then all of those efforts are in vain. We have to care for the consumer. We have to put households in the position where they don't only want to pay, but where they can pay. If we don't do that, we'll have more illegal connections. We'll have more non-payment. We'll have more deterioration of infrastructure, things going backward. And all the while, as Kevin has said to us, there are things that Eskom can do on the inside to save money instead of taxing themselves out of the problem. We will not tax South Africa out of an energy crisis. We will not tax Eskom out of trouble. We can only get there by reform, good management, and responsible decision making. So DA mayors and DA leaders will be making representations to NERSA. NERSA thinks it's only about the earrings, and they're not even going to the Northern Cape to have one. But it's not just about the earrings. It is about events like this today. It is about the public understanding that we can place pressure on institutions such as NERSA because part of their mandate is to take into account what ordinary people can afford. So let us today make them feel the pressure of ordinary South Africans. Viva DA, viva!
Ta-ta! big hoi hoi. They must feel the pressure. We refuse to continue to pay for Eskom's mess. Not only are we bailing you out, but when we give you money, you chow our state funds because you have no respect for South Africans. And you haven't had enough, and you are ridiculously imaginative enough to imagine 40% on top of that. We are not going to do that. Ntate Msimanga Gauteng iputlame. Ntate Panyaza Lesufi hatse bena wetsang. And the residents of this province can tell you themselves, this province, which was once upon a time a beacon of hope for South Africans who wanted to get economic emancipation, this province is a mess. It is in tatters. But we have faith that the Democratic Alliance is the only political party that has enough sobriety to rescue this province. So I'm going to invite you here onto this podium today to, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance in Gauteng and in the Gauteng legislature, tell these NERSA officers behind us, what do we mean when we say we will not have this come hell or high waters? You will not give us that increase. Hoi hoi, Msimanga, hoi hoi.
Hala latie halala. Hala latie halala. Kula tie kula. Democracy ritsenenga raditaba. Let's go deep into this. We told them years ago that you are failing to maintain your infrastructure.
Yeah.
We said you are not planning for the future.
Yeah.
They said, no, you are alarmists. No, you want to enjoy this thing only in the suburbs. No, you think we don't know what we are doing. Where are we right now? We are now in a big mess where the residents are feeling the pinch. We spent 17 years every day. My children don't know what a week is like without having full electricity. They had to learn now, say, oh, Papa, can't you electricity? I said, yes, that's how we grew up knowing. But because of the failure to plan, for the failure to ensure that you maintain discipline, they got us to where we are right now. And you see, this is the trend here, ANC. In government, we are here because of them. We said to them back then, you need to make sure that you have a long-term plan where you are able to start building for the future. No, they didn't. We started saying to them, use the money that we as taxpayers are paying to make sure that infrastructure is developed, infrastructure is maintained. They said, no, then it leaves little money for us to be corrupt. We said to them, no, you need more plants because you want an economy that is growing. They didn't build any new stations when we said building stations. And then when it came to the time when we are now in a crunch, they said, no, we'll build 3 power stations and this will revolutionize the economy and everything in South Africa. No. It has actually created more problems than it has been solutions. We are now sitting with debts. We are now sitting with a crisis where municipalities cannot even afford. Residents are now subjected to paying more to a point where they are saying, I cannot afford anymore. People who used to work are now not working anymore. But high. People are unemployed. We are saying we want an economy that is growing, but we are not fueling the economy that is growing. Nobody will be able to progress if people cannot spend money, and that money is supposed to then circulate. And if we are able to do that, that's how you get the economy going. That's how you get prosperity going. But if we are saying, let's tax people more, it's like getting into a bucket. You cannot lift yourself out of poverty. You cannot lift yourself out of trouble. We need proper management to be taking place. We are saying to NERSA, don't ever allow Eskom to continue doing what they are doing. What plans have they put in place to show that there is reforms that is taking place within? Instead of saying, pay for more so that we can steal more, pay for more so that we can mismanage more, pay for more so that we don't care what you get. Let me tell you something. Eskom has tripled in terms of its employment. but it has actually then more than halved in terms of its ability to supply. What does that tell you? It means that what has been happening is that we haven't really been building capacity. We have just been bringing in people to get into jobs that they don't even do. People are supposed to, if we have tripled the number of people that are employed by Eskom, surely then the maintenance of infrastructure should actually be high. But why is it not that case? Surely when we have more people than we've ever had before, we shouldn't be having the outages that we're having. I'm worried now that the residents of places like Johannesburg are now being threatened with a reduction in terms of load. If you understand the history of Johannesburg, you're talking about a place of gold, a place of opportunities. This is why we were saying that when Johannesburg and Gauteng sneezes, the whole of South Africa catches a flu. Let me show you how this is now becoming a big problem, not only for Johannesburg, but it's becoming a whole problem for South Africa. Go look at the stats, the latest employment stats. Gauteng has now performed the worst in terms of the creation of jobs. The worst. All the other provinces have actually started growing up at some point. That because Renali Premier, or we are left or we are right now. We have been saying, let's sit around the table. Let's talk about how do we deal with the issues of infrastructure. How do we deal and make sure that municipalities are able to provide electricity and people are able to pay for electricity and Eskom can get their money from the municipalities and then we can maintain that. We have been saying people are now struggling with water. He hasn't been coming. All he gives us Kimapanyaza, Baba Itulezem Baba Tushem. We don't know or Baya Kupil or Baya Kumrau now. We have been saying that these municipalities are not going to be able to sustain themselves in a manner that they're going. Let's sit around the table and come up with a plan. Dololo. We have been saying we need to have an infrastructure master plan that ultimately means that infrastructure can be maintained and we can build new infrastructure as Gauteng is expanding. And we can make sure that we're able to pay for that infrastructure and make sure that municipalities come out of the financial mess that they find themselves in. Mfuleni, they are planning now to give Mfuleni more money. You see, the ANC's plan is always to put money where problem is instead of taking care of the root cause of the problem. Putting money is like putting a plaster on an infested sore. You need to rip it, you need to clean it, you need to treat it, and then you begin to heal. But we are saying, like they did the e-tolls, they said, no, we are bringing e-tolls. They lied to us, if you remember. They brought to us e-tolls, and then the next thing they said, no, we must pay. And then the next thing they said, no, the government will scrap them. And then they said, now they will pay. Let me tell you, you are paying. You are paying because now the money that is supposed to be hiring nurses and teachers, the money that is supposed to be building schools and hospitals is now going to be paying e-tolls. The money that is now supposed to be ensuring that we have more policemen on the street, now they're not going to be getting that because money is going towards Eskom. It is going towards the e-tolls. So you can see that there is no plan here. The only thing they're planning to do is to steal more, is to enrich themselves more while you and me continue to suffer, while you and me continue to lose jobs, while you and me continue to live a life of abject poverty. And we are saying to NERSA, stand on the side of South Africans. Stand on the side of those that are saying we cannot continue like this. We need reform in Eskom. We need to make sure that Eskom is leaner, is meaner, is much more effective than what it is right now. Stand on the side of South African NERSA and say no. We will be saying no throughout South Africa. In all these hearings, we will be saying no to this 36% increase because it is going to steal so much more out of the South Africans. It's going to ensure that more South Africans are subjected to a life of poverty. It's going to ensure that businesses that are already struggling are going to be closing down. And that means that more and more South Africans are going to find themselves on the street without any income, are going to find themselves not able to feed themselves and their families. And that is not really the South Africa that we've been dreaming about. NERSA, stand on the right side of decision making and the right side of history here. We're calling on you to reject this. We're calling on you to stand with South African and say no to the Eskom proposed 36%. Amanda! In front of us here, there's more than 200,000 signatures that we are going to say to NERSA, listen to the people of South Africa who are saying this is not the solution. Pumping money into Eskom without them reforming is not the solution. It's more like just putting paraffin in a fire instead of putting out the fire so that we are able to then provide proper electricity. We are allowing Eskom to be bent down, to be broken down even further while we're busy pumping money into it without looking at the right solutions internally to fix the entity. And therefore, we are rejecting this as the Democratic Alliance. More than 200,000 people are rejecting this, and I'm sure millions more are even rejecting this. And we are saying, come out in your numbers, attend these public hearings, and make sure that your voice is heard. Thank you.
I think colleagues were all on the same page, and we agree that we've had enough failings from Eskom. But as Ntatem Simanga correctly pointed out, that we are not here alone. We are here with all of those signatures in this box. And many more South Africans who are saying genoeg is genoeg. Many more South Africans who are already living in abject poverty, who already do not know hore na bana ba jang pele ba ya sekolong, hore na bana ba aparang haebe ba ya sekolong, le hore na ha o bata Maria o pheha kang ho etsa bonnete ba hore bana ba ja, ho etsa bonnete ba hore di-light di teng, hore ngwana ha tswa sekolong ha kena ka tlung a kgone ho etsa homework ho na le di-light a ska etsetsa ka kerese le fifing. So we as the Democratic Alliance and every South African, with these petitions, we are saying exactly that we can't have this anymore. That NERSA, you have a responsibility to align yourself accordingly, to be on the side of South Africans who have already paid enough to Eskom. Kevin Milham, I'm going to hand over to you now. We have a memorandum. For you to read this memorandum, very clearly stating what it is that we're going to do. I'm going to hand over to you. Read that memorandum clearly.
This memorandum is addressed to the National Energy Regulator of South Africa at 526 Madiba Street, Arcadia, Pretoria. And it's a memorandum of opposition to Eskom's proposed electricity tariff increases. As millions of South Africans face mounting hardships, NERSA and Eskom's relentless tariff increases have created a new crisis: energy poverty. This year, NERSA has already approved a 4% make-up tariff to cover Eskom's previous revenue losses, adding further strain to consumers. Now, Eskom is proposing an additional 36.15% hike for 2025, which would compound the cost burden on South Africans already struggling with the highest electricity prices in the nation's history. Approving this excessive increase would be devastating, further escalating energy poverty and forcing countless households and businesses to the brink. In the past 15 years, electricity tariffs have soared by over 650%, far outstripping the 129% increase in inflation. Now, as the cost of living reaches crisis levels, this additional 40% increase would force families to make impossible choices between basic needs like food and paying for electricity. South Africans are not to blame for Eskom's failures. They have faithfully paid their bills and conserved power, while Eskom has mismanaged taxpayer funds. You have instead sought to punish innocent people for the maligned actions of politicians. South Africa did not break Eskom. Politicians broke Eskom. It was not ordinary citizens who engaged in state capture, nor did they contribute to Eskom's 24 billion rand loss or its endless corruption investigations. Despite this, NERSA continues to pass these costs on to the public. It is therefore highly unfortunate that a public institution such as yours, meant to serve the people, is doing the opposite. After gathering approximately 200,000 verifiable signatures, we, the Democratic Alliance, on behalf of the people, demand the following. 1. NERSA rejects tariff increases beyond the rate of inflation. 2. We demand to be freed from Eskom's monopoly through a competitive energy market. 3. we demand that the state capturers who broke Eskom are held accountable. 4, we demand that Eskom better manages taxpayers' funds rather than being a money pit. And 5, we demand that ANC municipalities indebted to Eskom pay up. We strongly urge NERSA to reject Eskom's proposed 36.15% hike for 2025 and to stand with South Africans who cannot afford to keep bearing the brunt of Eskom's mismanagement and escalating costs. South Africans should not be forced to shoulder the financial burdens of Eskom's failures. We call on NERSA to reject this hike and stand with the people by ensuring reliable and affordable electricity.
Thank you so much. On behalf of NERSA's chairperson, as well as the CEO of NERSA, we, I don't know, what do you want me to do? Okay. Sure. Yeah, we just want to greet you all. Sanbonani. Ninjani. Aye, sizophila. Yeah. So we just want to firstly apologize that the CEO as well as the chairperson of NERSA could not be here. We are here on their behalf to receive the memorandum, and we do assure you that we will pay absolute attention to what has been written in this memorandum within the timelines that are provided. And then we just want to also alert you that we will be embarking on a campaign nationally, starting from Monday. It's public hearings, I'm sure you are aware. We will be starting in the Western Cape, in Cape Town, on Monday, the 18th of November. And we do want to see the faces we see around here at those hearings, at least at some of the hearings. So that you can be able to provide your inputs in a formal way. Because NERSA does consider the views, the facts, as well as the evidence that is brought about by people like yourselves. We are a listening regulator. And then I just want to also mention about the issue of the Northern Cape. Yeah. That we only had one person that responded, to come and present at the public hearing. And so we decided that for that one person, we will make arrangements to come to the Free State instead. And this is also for the purpose of trying to save on funds so that we can utilize public funds in the most efficient way. Because remember, for the whole team to travel to the Northern Cape, it does cost quite a significant amount of money. So we have made those arrangements for that single individual to come to the Free State. And then lastly, I just want to assure you that this has not been in vain. We are receiving this, we will look at it, and we will do our level best to firstly understand the issues, and then of course all views are incorporated when the final decision is made by the regulator. And so with that, I just want to say thank you and have a blessed rest of the day. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just sign here.
All right. Sure. Just maybe lastly, the decision of the energy regulator is expected around the 20th of December. But we will have a media briefing when the results are ready. Thank you.
Hopefully it's in favor of South Africans.
I hope so.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah?
We just need the box back.
Just one more.
Are you going to follow the petition in?
Are you okay, Belinda?
Yes, I'm
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
Thank you.
Mdlamo.
Petition
so much.
Memorandum.
No problem. Siyabonga, Mr. Sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I see the petition box. For those of you who don't see it, I can say with authority 100%, I see them. They're walking up with the signatures up into the office. So not only has NERSA received our memorandum and have signed to say they've heard it and they've received it, but they're also going into their offices right now to say the petitions that come together with the memorandum are received. And ours is to hope that come the 20th of December, there will be a brighter day for South Africans, that we will go into Christmas happy and excited that in January we won't have to find ourselves in a situation where we have to choose between horeka cabbage le ho patala motlakase. Democrats, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you who are here today. We will continue as the Democratic Alliance to hold this government accountable for their failings for South Africans. Our participation in the GNU will also continue to be primarily at the best interests of all South Africans. Re re hayate khotso tsamayang hantle.
There you have it. The DA is continuing to fight for affordable, reliable electricity. I'm now joined by Kevin Mylan, who's been driving this issue from the beginning. You handed over 200,000 signatures here today to NERSA. How are you feeling about this event?
Well, I'm very excited. I think you could say that the atmosphere, unlike Eskom, is electrifying. And that we are shocked at the demands that are coming from Eskom. But yeah, I'm very excited that NERSA has accepted this so willingly, and I hope that they will take into consideration the submissions that we have made.
Now, Eskom is suggesting a 40% tariff hike. What would the effect be for vulnerable South Africans?
It's going to cripple vulnerable South Africans. It's going to cripple poorer households. It's going to make their electricity unaffordable. They're going to be forced into a binary choice between putting food on the table or paying for electricity. But more than that, it's going to affect businesses. It's going to affect every single entity that uses electricity to a greater or lesser extent. And so prices across the board are going to rise as a result of electricity tariff increases.
Yeah. Now, the cost of Eskom's poor governance and mismanagement is now being felt by the people of South Africa and being put on the shoulders of the people of South Africa. Could you just expand more on this?
Well, absolutely. We've already heard that there was a 24 billion rand loss in the last financial year. We haven't seen Eskom's financial statements yet. They were supposed to be presented to Parliament in October. They haven't been presented yet, so we are unable to drill into that. But more than that, the wastage at Eskom, the corruption at Eskom is out of control. Last week I was at Wilge Village, where Eskom built a residential complex meant to house the workers of Kusile. They spent more than 840 million rand on that complex, and today it stands abandoned. It is falling into disrepair. It's never been occupied. It's just a complete white elephant. This is the level of wastage that we're seeing at Eskom, and this is what ordinary South Africans are being expected to pay for.
Now, where the DA governs, what's being done to reduce our government's dependency on Eskom, as well as provide affordable, reliable electricity?
A lot of things are being done. First of all, those municipalities are going to NERSA and making submissions to NERSA and saying, you know what, we can't afford this. The people of South Africa can't afford it. You cannot put up the tariffs like that. So that's the first part. The second is that they're taking their own steps to be independent or to secure their own electricity supplies. So we've seen, for example, in the city of Cape Town, where tenders have gone out for independent power producers to provide electricity directly to the municipality, bypassing Eskom completely. And we're seeing more and more of that. Equally, we're seeing municipalities that are saying, for our own facilities, for example, water treatment facilities and sewage treatment facilities, let's put in renewable energy solutions that if there's load shedding, we can carry on operating. So they're reducing the dependency on Eskom, and they're reducing that single point of failure that they currently have.
Sure. That really is the DA different? So you've handed over this memorandum, this petition. Where to from now?
Well, the next step is for public hearings to take place. That starts next week. It starts on Monday in the Western Cape, and that will occur over a period of 2 weeks. We're calling on the citizens of South Africa to go to those public hearings and make their voices heard, to stand up and say enough. We cannot afford this. To lay out that South Africans cannot be required to pay over and over and over again for the corruption and mismanagement at Eskom. So that's the first step. NERSA will be making their decision around the 20th of December, and that's when we hope to hear that NERSA have rejected this demand from Eskom. But equally, we want to see that Eskom is more accountable, more transparent, and a leaner, meaner machine providing services to the people of South Africa. And if they do that, they wouldn't be in the situation that they're in now.
Kevin, what would your final message be for the people of South Africa watching at home?
Stand up, speak out, make your voices heard. Do not accept the status quo. The time for change is now. Get out and make your voice heard.
Kevin, thank you so much. We're also joined by the provincial leader here inside Gauteng, Solly Msimanga. Solly handed over a petition with over 200,000 signatures. How do you feel being here today?
Well, it's a bit of a bitter joy. It's a bitter thing, because we are now saying South Africans must be subjected to more hardships, must be subjected to more unemployment, must be subjected to more poverty, and a choice to whether be able to then feed their families or to pay for Eskom. We know that already there's a number of households that are illegally connecting to the electricity. Some of them are not able to then pay, even if they want to then pay, and they end up becoming illegals. And this is something that we are saying cannot continue. But we are here, we're happy that as a DA, we can stand on the side of South Africans. We can stand on the side of saying, NERSA, consider what, is the right thing to be done here. And the right thing is to make sure that the 40% that is being proposed here is not being granted. Think about it. We have been saying to Eskom for the very, very long time, reform within, instead of asking for more and more money. Eskom has actually tripled in terms of the amount of employees that it has, but it has actually reduced its ability to then be able to then provide electricity. So it means that we're just putting more money into a problem instead of addressing the root cause of the problem. And therefore, NERSA to grant Eskom, more money is just like putting more paraffin onto fire here. Instead of then let's put out the fire, let's make sure that we deal with the underlying issues and then plan money where money is going to go towards ensuring that people have reliable and sustainable electricity and actually enough capacity for the future instead of what we're having right now.
Sure. Now, in Gauteng, the DA has a massive amount of seats inside the legislature. What are you and your team doing to fight for reliable electricity inside Gauteng?
Well, what we have been doing is that we've been calling, first of all, for the meeting where we can actually present our, master plan, our infrastructure master plan. Because if you look at Gauteng as an example, you cannot even know where Midvaal ends, where Sedibeng starts, or where Johannesburg ends, where Pretoria ends, or where Ekurhuleni starts and where Johannesburg ends. And therefore, you need to have a master plan that talks to how these municipalities are connected and how infrastructure is to be shared, and how not only do we invest in this infrastructure, but maintain this infrastructure for the future. This is what the DA in the Gauteng province has been proposing and actually been taking forward. Unfortunately, we have a premier and we have a cabinet that only concerns about the blue lights and concern about themselves and the grandees that they have been really putting in front of the residents of Gauteng. Instead of sitting around and saying, what is the plan? Are we able to then really work on a plan that will make sure that municipalities become cash flush? Municipalities are able to meet their obligations, but more than that, we are able to then ensure that those that are connected illegally to electricity, to water, can be connected legally. We can account for each and every kilowatt or kiloliter of electricity or water, and then we are able to then provide better services from a municipal level going up all the way to the province. And this is what we have been saying and trying to push at the provincial level.
Sure. Solly, what would your final message be for the residents of Gauteng?
My message to the residents of Gauteng is simple. You refuse to pay for the e-tolls. You refuse to be subjected to an illegal act. Come out in your numbers and support the Democratic Alliance and all the millions of South Africans that are saying this is unaffordable. We are asking you to come in and join in on all the hearings, and in those hearings made it very, very clear that you are not going to be able to survive this. This is going to cripple us as individuals, it's going to cripple us as the economy, it's going to cripple us, as a nation that is supposed to really be developing and moving forward. So this is why we are asking you, as an individual, sitting back is not going to be the solution. Come out in your numbers, make your voice known, and support us in ensuring that Eskom is not granted the 40% tariff hike that is seeking.
Thank you so much, Solly, and thank you to everyone who tuned in at home. The DA will continue to fight for affordable and reliable electricity. It's completely unacceptable for South Africans to be put in a position where they need to decide about whether to keep the lights on or keep food on the table, whether to keep the lights on or keep shoes on their children's feet. And the DA will continue fighting for all South Africans and for the most vulnerable who cannot afford this 40% tariff increase. And we're calling on South Africans to assist us in this fight. Go to stoptheenergygrab.ca.da.org.za and sign our petition so that we can continue this fight. And until then, keep the faith, South Africa. We are the ones we've been waiting for.
I am a mother. I am a father. I'm a daughter. I am a son. I believe in freedom. Freedom to earn a living. Go where I want. Love who I want. Say what I believe and pursue my dreams. I am brave. I am a provider. I believe in fairness. A fairness where our achievements are determined by our choices and hard work. I am a leader. I believe in opportunity. A nation where opportunity is plentiful and everyone's rights are protected. I believe in diversity. Every person has a unique perspective and an important role to play in building our nation. We do not judge each other by how we look, but by who we are. We are South Africans working together. We are the Democratic Alliance.
Thanks for watching. All across our beautiful country, people are joining forces to elect the new government that can rescue South Africa. Like and follow us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Please share our videos with friends and family. Let's rescue South Africa.